All right, let's talk Skinamarink. Um, this is a horror film from first time director, right? I think he only did YouTube stuff. Um, is it Kyle Edward Bell?
Ball, I think.
Ball, excuse me. Ball, really interesting.
Yeah.
I like it. So this movie just came out this year and it's now streaming on Shudder. It had a $15,000 budget, and I believe he shot it at his parents' house, and it made over 2 million in the box office. So that is, regardless of what you think of the movie, I think we can all agree that's an achievement and that's pretty cool. I love to see it. I'm rooting for anybody who's like doing stuff like that on a budget and making something pretty cool and different. Because I definitely don't think I've ever seen anything like this movie. So, the basic overview of the plot is two children wake up in the middle of the night to find their father missing, and all of the windows and doors in the house have disappeared. So, that's weird already, and, like, I watched the trailer, and then I was like, This is a movie? Like, what? This feels like background music or something, like, background
Yeah.
noise, like,
Mhm.
I don't know." And then hearing the controversy, like, with the movie, which was people were, like, really adamantly talking about how they loved it and thought it was the greatest horror movie of all time, or nothing happened and it sucks and it's the worst, and they were like violently mad. So I feel like that was like a huge thing that made me like, oh, I'm interested to see this no matter what I think of it. Like that was what sold me on it because I love when people take a big swing. That's basically what it means. So what did you guys think?
I agree. I think it was. I mean, I'll come out and say I am in the camp of people who really liked it. I think for me, it. I mean, we'll talk a lot about this, I'm sure, but like it raises so many uh, inspirations and so many references to other things. I think it like has tendrils that kind of like reach out and touch a lot of other things that I feel pretty passionately about. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm also a person who, despite trying to watch a lot of film, has not watched a lot of experimental films. So I think like
Mhm.
the style of filmmaking here is pretty new to me. Um, and yeah, I found it, like certainly like there's a lot of I think the pacing is one area where like a lot of people are either gonna love it or hate it, right? Like it is
Mhm.
very, very, I mean, I don't even want to say slow, but it takes its time making its point, right? And like
Not traditional. Yeah.
not traditional, yeah. Like
Yeah.
it is gonna take, I mean, and that's part of the point, I think, right? Is like to give you time to like feel the eeriness of what's happening and like not rush through anything or like try to adhere to like too traditional of a pacing.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I kind of
Yeah.
feel like I kept checking how much longer was left in the movie. I felt like it kept getting longer and longer, and I was like, "Is this part of the movie? Like, it won't ever end?"
It was feeling like the slow burn of all slow burners.
It was,
Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
like, painfully, like, punishingly slow. I was like, "What did I do?"
but that added to the fear level, for me at least. That intensity of like, well, I'll say I was not a fan of the film. I fall into camp not fan. But everything, it's just the like artistic delivery method was what I was not a fan of. I think the concept, I think the plot, I think everything about it is so awesome and like exploratory. I love that it's like a minor budget,
Mhm.
had a lot of hype. Love that for this guy. Like I want to see more films like that, honestly. More experimental stuff, but I struggled. I really struggled to like sit through. I had to do it in two watches. I think Renee did too.
Yep.
And yeah, I loved some parts of it, but I don't know. I had some moments where I was like, "Holy shit, I can't get through this."
Yeah, I had that thought, like, no joke, the every minute of the movie, and I finally finished it, and I was just curious when something was gonna be scary, and to me, it was, like, relaxing as fuck, like, I was like, "I would put this on and go to sleep, like, this might be my new nighttime movie." It, like it was like ASMR, like, it soothes my black heart.
Mm.
I was like, "This is just, like" it was kind of like just I don't know what it was about it. Maybe I'm fucked up in the head or I'm, like, desensitized to shit, but I was like even when I was, like, seeing creepy shit, I was, like, wanting something creepy to show itself, and, like, I wanted to be creeped out, and I think when we talk about this movie because good god, it's just, like, I have so many questions, but I think my main question I wanted to ask you guys, and I'm hoping that you guys can explain it to me, is, like, what is the plot of this movie? Because I don't think I would have ever figured anything out if I hadn't have read the article that Avery sent.
Mhm.
I mean, if I didn't read that, I mean, I was just going, "Did this all happen? Did I black out? Like, I don't remember." And I was like, "I just finished watching it."
It was really hard for me to put the pieces together too, and I think that's why some people are just like can't stand it because they want it to be just like mapped out for them.
Yeah, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm totally in support of people, like, of movies that don't do that, like, cool, but, like, that's not me. Like, I one of the movies that I have, like, a really weird hatred for is Tenet, because I've seen that movie twice, and I don't understand a fucking thing that happened. I don't think I've seen it, ever. Like, I
Yeah.
can't remember anything about it, and they, like, deliberately make it hard to understand the dialogue and all this other shit, and I couldn't hang with it. I need a little bit of plot, a little something. I'm not that smart is basically what I'm saying. I need this explained to me a little bit easier. Like, as weird and artsy as I can get is, like, David Lynch, and I still struggle to understand that shit, but it's
Yeah,
like, that's as, like, dreamlike and bizarre as I get, I think.
I know.
I
I
still
kind of
need a
want.
little
I feel
something.
like I need Griffin as a fan of it to tell me your immediate understanding of the movie, or did
Yeah.
you need to
Yeah,
go
fair.
down like the Twitter hole to like or Reddit sphere to like understand what you just watched?
Um, I think maybe the difference between all of us is that and I don't want to speak for anybody else who enjoyed this movie, but like personally, me, I think I'm just not really. It doesn't bother me as much to feel like I'm walking out of a movie without knowing exactly what happened at every step of the
Mm.
way.
Mhm.
Like I, and I don't think that's like a better point of view or like everyone should get on my level or whatever, but like uh, I and I think it's totally valid to not feel that way too, right? To like just feel like I'm a fan of a more linear story that is a little more explicit about what it's about.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a little more engaging for me. That's totally fair, and I don't think anybody. I think there's often this attitude that like if you're a real film appreciator, then like
Mhm.
you have to be okay with stuff like that. Like fuck that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you can like whatever you like, right? Like and it
Yeah.
doesn't make you any better or worse than anybody else. But
That's, like, a hot take right now, though, because I
I
feel
feel
like
like Nope brought that up. Like a bunch of
yeah.
people hated Nope because they're like, I don't get it.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It's
Exactly.
definitely Nope is definitely like when you compare it to like Us or Get Out, it's definitely more like it takes its time, it's less
Mhm.
explicit, it's less, it's not like spoon feeding the plot as much.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean I totally get it. And I think it's the one thing I'll say about it is that like I think over time the kinds of movies I appreciate change and like sometimes I do like sometimes it's in the direction of like what I think people would consider to be sort of more pretentious or like more arty films. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's like back in the direction of just like more basic crowd pleasing stuff. And like, sometimes I'm just like, I don't have the fucking patience for, something, especially if I think a big factor is also like whether you are bought in on like the director and what you feel like they're trying to do with the movie or like what the story is and if that is compelling to you. Like I think we're all walking in with sort of a certain level of patience for some movies and it goes up and down based on like how much you're bought in on the idea of the movie itself.
And imagine how much like horror gets a bad rap for being slow burn. Like you walk into a movie, you
Totally.
want that like wow from the get go. And
Mhm.
if you don't get it, I feel like a lot of people just write it off. They're like, no, this sucks. Like I wanted to
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think I'm just that explains it a little bit. I'm just curious, like, what is so scary about this movie? Because, like, I didn't think anything was, and I just felt like it was just kind of relaxing and, like, soothing, like, the sounds and the cartoons, like, I mean, maybe I was a fucked up kid, but, like, I was also always like, I wish there was a ghost in the house that I would talk to because I was always like, "Life is so boring compared to movies. I wish something cool like that would have happened." I think I would have been into it, so maybe this is just not my nightmare. What weirdly,
No.
one of the few things that does not give me a panic attack.
I think it's like the dead air that gets because this movie made me uncomfortable. There were definitely parts where I felt uneasy and like it is the dead space. I think it's literally just like that floating staticky white noise. Like I
Mhm.
constantly need noise. Like I need to fall asleep to TV. I need like music playing if
Same.
I'm working. So I think it's just that like we're going to sit here and we're going to be silent and there's going to be like a dark corner that just no, I can't.
Yeah.
I have to know what's in the corner, noise, like I
Yep.
need something.
You need
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like The Office when Gabe's like, maybe the director knew that even narrative was comforting. It's like, yeah, I feel like that's the thing is that this is
Yeah.
uncomfortable because you don't know what's happening and it's so surreal and weird. And like I get that for sure. I think it's just maybe it's too elevated for me. I think I'm not like a lot of elevated horror goes over my head at first. Like, I have to watch that a few times. Like,
Mm,
I'm very much in the vein of like, I mean, I love a silly or like crazy ass horror movie, like Malignant. That's like my
mhm.
fucking number one horror movie of all time.
That
I
movie
want that
rules.
all day, and I'm cool with the fact that there's no message, no importance behind it, because I don't think every movie needs that.
It is pretty silly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's silly, but then I just, like I think this movie at least has, like, some quality to it. I think it's just I don't it doesn't respond. I think I just don't respond to it, but what I plan to do is, like, take some shrooms and watch it again, and, like,
Mm.
maybe then I will, like, maybe then I'll really have a panic attack. I don't know, but it kinda sounds like an experiment because like, I would love to feel something from this movie.
Okay, wait, that's a good question. Like, should we all vote would you watch again? So we've set our stance on if we like it or don't like it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, would you watch it again and how soon do you think you could rewatch a movie in that
Ooh,
like style?
good
Oh
question.
god.
I would definitely watch it again. I do think I want. I saw it probably like a week ago, maybe a little more. And I think I would give it some time to marinate before I watch it again. It's not going to
Ooh,
be
I love
like
that. Good word
in.
choice.
I would
Marinate.
probably watch it in like 2 or 3 months again and see how I feel.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna need some drugs and maybe never if I but we'll see. But if
Maybe
I,
never.
like if I get really bored, I'm like, "You know what? I might try that experiment." It sounds like it could work, like
It makes me want to go down more like experimental horror genres.
really?
Yeah,
Mm.
a little bit. Because I'm like, okay, if some of this tickled me, then I feel like there's got to be something that falls farther into this genre that like
I wanna be tickled
does
again.
it for me. Yeah, I know. Tickled by horror, aren't you
Yeah.
guys? I am.
I mean, I am a lot of the time. I find this stuff relaxing. I love it. I listen to people screaming to go to bed. Like, I don't know why that soothes me. I think I'm a freak. So maybe
Can
that's
we
why it's like
actually can we talk about that? That's a thing. Like I
Mhm.
was reading about this recently, how like there is,
really.
and I don't know what the common thread between people who do it is, but like it sounds like we all might be in the same camp of people who like put on a horror movie and take a nap. Like
Yeah.
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 that is extremely my jam.
Oh, that's 100% what I do. Like, I literally took a nap the other day watching As Above, So Below,
Nice.
and I'm like, that movie's, like, really stressful normally, But I
Hmm.
think I could just fall asleep when a horror movie's on because it's, like it's just soothing because it's, like for me, as an anxiety-riddled person, I find that it, like, helps me release it in a
Yeah.
safe way versus, like,
Mhm.
just bottling it all up all the time and then exploding and being, like, stressed out, it just I think it's a healthy exercise. I would never face any of my fears like this in person, though.
It's
Like,
like
you
being
Yeah.
consensually
Yeah.
scared. You're like, I'm
Yeah.
allowing this.
Yeah.
This is under my
Mhm.
terms.
Exactly, and I used to be
That's
such
yeah.
a scaredy cat, but I feel like as I've grown up, it takes more to scare me now, but it helps me feel a little bit more courageous, but
Yeah, I'm a former scaredy cat as well. Are you a former
Yeah.
scaredy cat, Griffin? Like as a kid, no scary movies.
Oh,
I
totally.
cried. My brother-in-law wore a jigsaw mask once when Saw came out, and he like popped out of the corner sobbing. And he was like dating my sister at the time, so it was like really mortifying for him. But yeah, I was a huge scaredy cat.
oh my
That's so
gosh.
funny. No, I was totally, yeah. I mean, as a kid, I like when I say I was like a scared kid, I think like it would be hard to overstate like how intense that was. Because like I was like I had like this is probably getting into way more of my personal background than like a film podcast warrants, but like
Feel free to share everything.
when I was all right, so like when I was a kid, I was like probably a pretty normal kid up until probably like second grade. And in second grade, like a switch kind of flipped in my brain, and I like all the anxiety stuff started like all at once for me. And like and it's probably still like that time period is the most intense anxiety I've ever had in my life. Like it's been bad at various times since then, but like, mostly it's been a downhill trend from there.
Wow.
But like, yeah, as a kid, the list of things that would like trigger panic attacks for me is like wild. Like I could not get on elevators. I could not get thunderstorms were like horrifying to me. Uh
Wow.
You needed a
like
thunder
going
buddy.
and sleeping at like another friend's house for the night was like something that I like was
It was
super scared of
hard.
doing. Like
Yeah.
yeah, like just like almost everything you can imagine a kid being scared of, I was like totally terrified of.
I just feel like that's great because I think we were all the same, it sounds like, and pretty terrified, but look at how much we've overcome. But I think this is actually a good transition. So I was thinking we could talk about some childhood nightmares and fears and things like that. Since that's the one thing I think I understood from this movie is that it's like supposed to be like the nightmare of a child and like this that feeling, and it's like shot from that perspective, right? Did I get that right at least?
I think so, yeah. I mean,
I feel
Okay.
like,
like it's a common theme
yeah,
for sure.
Just say yes, guys. Come on. No.
yeah. No,
Just
for
make
sure. I
me
mean, like,
sound smart.
do you feel like it? Because I think that was my even before reading about it. And now I understand this is like very much a common thread in the way that people talk about this movie, but very much like as I was watching it, I was like, this does very intensely feel like a bad dream I would have when I was 6 years old.
Mm.
Yeah.
It felt like a dream state almost because of the quality of the movie too. Like
Yeah.
the haze of it, like the low qualityness feels like your subconscious, like when you're sleeping.
Yeah, for sure. I think when you're a kid, there's that like kind of unique way that you feel fear where like you don't really have a great understanding of like physics or like what is possible in the world. And so like
Mhm.
you just imagine things that, are like we would understand now to be impossible, but like as a kid, you have no idea, right? Like there could be a monster in the closet, the house could collapse all of a sudden and like swallow me up. Like, I don't know enough to know that that's not gonna happen.
I mean, I still think that. So, like, I don't think I've ever lost my childhood mindset. I think I still am, like, terrified of all that improbable shit. Like, I'm like, it stresses me out to think about it because apparently it's something that I need to be worried about. Even though I do know somewhere in the back of my head it's not possible, but, like, that doesn't stop me from being fucking scared of it.
Yeah, Avery, like, does this feel like childhood nightmares that you had?
I think that's why this like Skinamarink set a weird little feeling in me because like as a kid I always had nightmares of waking up and like my parents were gone. And this is like very like nail on the head on the nail, whatever that saying is. I feel like it's
Nail on the
very
head.
yeah, thank you. I feel like that is like too accurate, but like I remember waking up in the middle of the night, like walking out and like having to check my parents' room and being sure they were in
Oh my
bed
god,
and
yes.
being
Yeah,
like,
Wow.
cool, check, check, okay, going back
yes.
to bed. Like peace of mind.
Yeah,
I don't
totally had the like fear of abandonment, fear of like waking up and being
yeah.
alone somewhere. Totally relate to that.
Yeah, so that part of it definitely freaked me out. I also don't like I wouldn't say I was claustrophobic necessarily, but I didn't like doors being shut as a kid. So like
Interesting.
bathroom doors got to be open, bedroom doors got to be open, like
Mhm.
you shut that door except a closet cuz like let's not go there. Monsters are in the closet. We got to keep it
Exactly.
in.
That's just a known fact.
Right,
But
right.
so then the lack of doors, I was like, "Oh shit. Oh my god." Like
Yeah.
there's not
Yeah,
even the
yeah.
option.
That's true. That's the stressful part about this whole situation, I think. And like as a kid, I definitely would have been afraid of this if I saw this when I was younger, I think. Like this would have
Oh
fucked
yeah.
me
Oh
up.
man,
Like
yeah.
this, like I'm sure that I had this fear when I was a kid. I don't really remember it because I think it's just I have too many nightmares and like scary things that I thought of when I was a kid that like they've scarred me for life. And it's like I have too many to count, so I that one just got lost in the mix, I think. Like, if I was ever scared of it, like, I used to have a recurring nightmare for 10 years at least about Jumanji, the original one with Robin
Wow.
Williams. That's how
Oh
much
my
of a
god.
fucking scaredy cat I was.
Wait, what was the nightmare about?
It was specifically about, like, being stuck in the jungle, like, when he gets sucked into the game, I hated
Yeah.
that, and then also
Yeah.
the quicksand part, I have, like that's
Oh
still, like,
yeah.
something I
Ooh.
have not, like, recovered from because, like, growing up as, like, a millennial, I feel like all I saw in, like, movies and TV and cartoons was fucking quicksand, and I thought I was gonna
Quicksand
deal with
Yeah.
this
everywhere.
shit every day.
Yeah.
So I think it just scarred me for life because I saw that movie when I was, like, 5. So, I was terrified of that. I also hadn't seen Jurassic Park for a long time because I was terrified of that growing up, specifically of
Dude, yeah.
going to the bathroom because
Mm.
I always, like, misremembered the part where the lawyer gets eaten off the toilet. I thought he was
Yeah.
taking a fucking shit. So, like, I always thought his pants were down and he was, like, literally just going to the bathroom. That was how my childhood brain and so I was like, "I'm never using the bathroom again." So
He
I
was
just
sitting on
assumed.
the toilet,
Holds
to
it
be fair to
forever.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, well, it was mostly, like, at public places or, like, outhouses, like, my parents would
Oh,
always fucking
yeah.
take us camping, which I hated that too, and so I was like, "I'm not going out here. This
Oh,
is where the
like a
dinosaurs are gonna kill
camping
me."
bathroom, like a
This is the
public
dinosaurs are
camping
gonna
Yeah,
bathroom, I
get
can
me.
see that. Yep.
yeah, and I just feel like my brain is never really, like I don't care if, like, I know that dinosaurs don't exist, like, I'm still gonna be terrified of them.
Right,
Like,
that's
it's
when you're
still
a
gonna be a
kid, you don't
regular.
know, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like I'm more of like the type of person where it's like I don't necessarily believe in ghosts and that dinosaurs can come back and whatever, but it's like I don't not believe that it could happen. Like I
Yeah.
if it happened, I would be ready for it, I think is what I'm trying to say. This is why I watch horror movies.
You
Yeah.
prepare. You're preparing.
Yeah. So I'm surprised that this movie did not affect me because I'm such as a child too, I was just so stressed out from horror and creepy things. So I mean, not even horror, like Jumanji's a kids movie. So
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
just feel like I was surprised I wasn't scared. I think it's the shrooms. I need to do that, maybe connect with my inner child.
Well, I think, like, watching this movie is a and, like, comparing it to your feelings about it, Renee, is a good example of how, like, all of the movies that are scary about houses are people just inflicting their internal trauma and, like,
Mm,
making up what
Mm.
they're seeing. It's like them processing trauma, and, like, so it all comes back to the person. So it's like because you saw Jurassic Park, you, like, couldn't go to the bathroom. And these people are imagining this crazy shit's happening in their house because they're processing that their, like, mom died in a really
yeah.
graphic way or something.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like it all comes back to yeah, like what this movie's about, but not.
I did okay, so then maybe the toilets disappearing was, like, pretty scary for me because that would be stressful. When those disappeared, I was like, "Oh, man, now we're talking."
Speaking as somebody who lives in a house with 1 bathroom, I can tell you that the idea of a toilet disappearing or not being available is a very real fear I have at this
Yeah,
point in time.
like, dealing with that
That's
on a
actually so
regular
funny.
basis.
Yes, I have that fear of not yeah, definitely toilet access is a
Yeah.
common theme in what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to also clarify that I have since recovered and I can use the restroom normally. So I just want to put
We're
that
very
out
proud
there.
of you.
This
We're
wasn't
very
like
proud.
another like 10-year problem I had, but just I think because I saw fucking Jurassic Park when I was way too young. And my parents were just like, oh, she'll be fine. And then look at me now.
She can go potty all by herself.
You've come a long
Yeah.
way, Renee.
Work,
I
girl.
know. But you made a really good point about how it kind of connects to like what house horror does, which I think we're gonna trademark right now because that's like
Yeah.
we don't have a fucking name for it, so just stick with us. But I think Griffin, you have a way better explanation for this than I do. So please take it away.
Yeah, I hope I do some justice to this fake idea that we've all come up with. But uh, yeah, it's funny because we've talked about this being a thing in so many either movies or books we've read, and I like you, I'm like really surprised that there is not an easily Googleable name for this. I feel like there must be somewhere, and maybe your listeners are like shouting at their Spotify right now, like I know what it is, I know what it is. But it's like the idea of horror that comes from a structure, like we're calling it a house because it's often a house, but it could be something else. Like coming from like the architecture and like how
Mhm.
it moves in unreal ways or how it is unreal itself or like how kind of the overall structure of the house plays into the horror of the movie. So like it could be anything from like we talk about it in Skinamarink as the thing of all of the windows and doors disappearing and suddenly you're trapped in this structure, right? uh,
Mhm.
we talked about other examples where like somehow like the one that gets brought up everywhere we're finding out in real time is like House of Leaves,
Mhm.
the book, if everybody's familiar, where a group of people find hallways and rooms within a house that are far larger than the house itself. So like it should not be possible for these things to exist inside the house. But yeah, just like the general idea of like how a house or a structure with some kind of unreal quality to it creates horror for the characters.
I love it. It's definitely a freaky concept, and it's like I think, yeah, the way to differentiate it is, I always think of, movies like Insidious or whatever, where they, the kid goes into the coma and he's, being possessed by the thing, and
Mhm.
then they move, and then, the same it's still happening again, right? So,
Totally.
it's like the thing follows you, which honestly, that sounds worse to me because, I would fucking hate that. You can't escape it. You gotta deal with it. So that's just like, I'm out. I'm gonna bounce. I'm gonna just kill myself. But I would say, a house horror would be fucked because, once you get in, it won't let you out, right? So
Right,
it's like
right.
you're kinda fucked either way, but
Well, I think one of them that's like The Conjuring is a good example where they like moved in and they were so broke and then they started getting haunted by whatever was in the space and they're like, "Okay, well we literally can't leave because we have zero money." And like they're just stuck
yeah.
there.
I mean, I kinda feel like the message of most, ghost haunted house horror movies is that you should never fucking buy a house. I don't think I ever could
Yeah.
because
Or
I'm
buy a house
stressed.
that was built like last year.
Yeah, exactly, and then again, I think I need to double check or do some research because even newer shit could have it, you tear down some old
Where
haunted
it's
shit,
built.
and now there's some other stuff, I don't know what's out there, and I don't really wanna find out, so I just think I'm gonna be safe because if I'm in a rented space, I will never be that person in horror movies that's like, "Well, all of our money's tied up here, we can't do anything," and in that case, I would probably just still fucking leave.
I do
Right?
like
Someone
the
else can
idea
have
of
it.
rental horror where like, the ghost is getting confused about like whether you or the landlord is the person it's supposed to be haunting.
Yeah, exactly, that could be a
Like,
really good
when
horror
you look at
comedy.
your, like, mortgage agreement, like, I need to understand, like, who is
Yeah.
legally in possession of this house.
I thought of one, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I think it's a really effective one, is, Hell House LLC.
I've never seen it.
Never seen it? Have
I
you
gotta
seen it,
check.
Avery?
Hold on, I gotta
It
look it up.
it's like found footage, and it's on Shutter, I believe. And it's about these people it's all documentary kind of vibes of, there's interviews about after the event that happened on Halloween where, 30 people died at this haunted house, and then it's they have they're the cameras that the people had when they were setting everything up and all the freaky shit. So they're, in this creepy ass abandoned hotel, and they're setting up a horror house, and then it's that shit starts there's this creepy ass clown thing that gets up and moves around and all and then hallways change and shit like that. And it's this whole freaky story of and it's just that place is I think eventually there's 2 sequels and they talk about it being the gateway to hell. But I was
Oh,
that's
nice.
the first thing I thought of was something like that where you're just I mean, you're fucked the minute you walk in the door, you know?
For sure. Yeah, I think this is such, like, a widely explored topic, and I think it's interesting that there's so many different ways people play with this idea of, like, a space that you're in being creating horror, right? Like there's sort of the idea, like you said, of changing hallways and like, I think the easiest reference for a lot of people, even though it's not horror, is like Harry Potter, right? Where like the
Mm.
staircases move around and like,
Yep.
Mhm.
that is
It's
kind of
terrifying
reminds
to
you of like an
me.
Escher painting. Yeah, like that is one version of it, and like that's the one I think like Skinamarink plays the most directly with. But there's also
Mhm.
like, we've talked a lot about like The Shining and like how there's this idea of just the structure itself being a character that is
Mm.
inflicting horror upon the characters, right? Like, the hotel, certainly in the book more so than in the movie, and Stephen King is I think it's one of the things he probably doesn't love about the movie is that it isn't as explicit as the book is about the hotel being like a
Mhm.
malignant force that is creating horror for the characters. But
Oh, totally. I feel like in the movie, they make Jack seem so self-inflicted with his own chaos. Like, it does not seem like it's coming from and you get so little tastes of, like, the special room that it doesn't,
Mhm.
like, push that enough, that it's like, no, it's the building, not
right,
the guy literally having cabin fever.
He's not just, part of the problem, it's not attracted to him because of his negative
Yeah.
energy or whatever the fuck, I'm
Mhm.
sure I
yeah,
know it is in the book, but, it's also, I just feel like Jack comes across as a more sympathetic character in the book because he's not, so crazy and evil to start, which I think
right.
is, more fit to like the horror of that situation of like the cabin fever is that it's a really slow process
Mhm.
and it's like really fucks with your mind and it's a huge struggle. But I think like that the hotel in the book especially is just such a cool character and like it
Yeah.
freaks me out. Like, I mean, the miniseries, I don't know if you ever saw the miniseries remake they did. And, it's not great. I'm like, there was no way that this is gonna be successful, like, I know and Stephen King, like, financed it, like, he got
Oh,
the rights
wow.
Mhm.
back from Kubrick. I can never say his name right. I'm always like, Kubrick? Um, and
He's
so,
dead.
like, he was like, "Let's do it. Let's make it again," and I was just like, "That was just a dumb idea, I think," but it is, like, closer to the novel, but I just think that movie ended up working a lot better as a movie, the way that it's done, and I do
Yeah.
think it still has some of that the house horror vibes in it, especially, like, the maze and stuff. I know it's not
Yeah.
necessarily it's, like, supernatural, but I
Yeah.
get that vibe a lot in the maze sequence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, the idea of like, well, and also, in the book, it is more explicit that like the maze is changing, right? Like that there
Mhm.
are physical things moving around in it.
I hate that. It's
Yeah,
so freaky. The
Again,
animal
Harry
sculptures or
Potter,
whatever.
the animal
again,
sculpture
as
is so good.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right,
Yeah.
exactly. Harry Potter. Yeah, in the Goblet of Fire stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I couldn't go to fucking as much as I wanted to as a kid, I don't think I would have made it at Hogwarts because I would have had a panic attack if I knew that any of that shit was
Shit just moved
possible.
around. Yeah.
Yeah, oh my
Yeah,
god. I mean, I would never make it to class if that was the fucking stairs. I
yeah.
also have an
You have the
irrational
perfect
fear of
excuse for never making it to class.
yeah. I have, like, a paralyzing fear of going down the stairs because I always just panic that I'm gonna trip and fall because I have done that on a few occasions. So, like, it's, like, one of my biggest fears. I, like, always need the rail and I'm, like, shaking the whole way down. So, like, if it was changing on me, I think I would have a heart attack.
Nice.
So, like, this I think this kind of vibe, if I was in any sort of house where anything changed or was, like, not making sense, I think I would instantly my mind would break. I think I would just lose it because like, the fact that that would even be possible is so insane, right? And
Yeah,
horrifying because there's no way out, I don't think.
Well, and I like the idea that the house is the character. Like, that we're
Yeah.
calling a house the character or the space the character.
Yeah.
Because that has that power in the movie, or it has that much, like, control to change, and it's just like, that alone is like, "No, for me. I don't like
Mhm.
right,
it. I'm
right.
out."
Yeah, or,
Yeah.
like, when they can, like I love it when the house can, like, at least I'm thinking, like, in Hell House and then in 1408, it's like it does that thing where it, like, pretends to be the main guy when he finally gets through to his wife, and it's like, "Come to the room, like, I need you to be here," and he's like, "No, don't come," but she can't see him, and he's like it's just really interesting, and I they do that in Hell House too, where it's like some chick shows up, and they're like, "What? You were supposed to be watching outside?" She's like, "You just called me and told me to come in here." So it's like the house is fucking inviting people in and trying to pull
Mhm.
more people in, and it's like it's hungry, and it, like, gives it a personality to me. It's, like,
Yeah.
really
Mhm.
freaky when it can do that. That's, like, really terrifying to me.
You've both seen the Netflix Haunting of Hill House, right?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
fuck yeah, I love
Yeah.
Wes
That's just what that
Flanagan.
made me think of too, Griffin.
Yeah, because I think what triggered me was like when you said hungry, because I think well, and there's the Shining connection, right? Because
Yeah.
Henry Thomas is in both of them.
Yep.
When Henry Thomas's character in Haunting of Hill House talks about how the house is hungry and like wants to eat the kids, basically, like
Mhm.
yeah, this
Yeah.
idea of like like a consciousness that exists in the
Mhm.
structure. Yeah,
It's like energy feeding.
That's horrifying, and I feel like I mean, granted, I don't know if this is actually possible, but I feel like with the advances in AI and technology and shit, like, this is something that could be possible, is if you have a smart house and it goes sentient. I also recently pitched this on our episode about Megan because I was like, "This could be the sequel because like, she is merged with the Alexa type thing and taken over the house now.
Yeah,
So
at
I'm
the
like,
end.
let's just up the ante, and I don't know if you guys were ever into, like, Disney Channel movies,
Smart
but
House.
Smart House,
Oh,
it's my
yeah.
favorite Disney Channel original movie. Oh my god, Griffin, you're shaking your head. You have to see this movie. Go
I
out
might
and
have
watch
been
it.
just a touch too old for it, but I will check it out.
No, Renee, when the house shut down on itself, that shit left me with nightmares. Like, as a
Yeah,
kid, I was like, I don't like that this house just like like metals up all the windows and all the kids are like
yeah.
trapped inside.
It's
Ooh.
scary, right? And then it can, like, put the, like it turns it, like, the environment against it, it creates, like, a hurricane in the house, like, it's
That's right.
horrifying. I recently rewatched this after watching Megan because I was like, "This has gotta be where they're going with Megan
Same
too."
vibe. Yeah, same
Yeah,
vibe.
I'm like, this is, like possible now to make your house so sentient that it becomes one of these fucking house horrors, which is not the direction we should be moving. I think we should be moving against this. I don't know why people want this, but they're trying to make it a reality. And
Yeah.
that's why I think the end times are upon us. In
I
short.
think there is. I don't want to I don't want to give free advertising to another podcast on this podcast, but
Yeah, shut the hell up. No, I'm just kidding. Go
let's
ahead.
say,
We
let's say
shout out podcasts.
another unnamed podcast. That was the on the Blank Check podcast. They were
I
talking
love
about
blank check.
there is I think it's the Halloween episode, the episode about the movie Halloween that they did, where they talk about this idea of horror converting from, like, in the 70s, converting from this idea of, like, especially religious horror being kind of the
Mhm.
primary focus to
Hail Satan, right?
yeah, exactly. Uh, to like what Halloween did that was interesting is that it, like, brought horror to the suburbs, which were, like, not new in the 70s, but, like, relatively new, right? Like, it was, culture was kind of catching up to the idea of, like, what the suburbs meant culturally, and, like how it created for a lot of people this feeling of safety, and,
Uh-huh. I was gonna say
like
suburbia safety, man.
exactly, right? Like, you were kind of shielded from the violence of the city, or, like, the crime,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it brought this idea of, like, horror can get you even in this place where you feel safe. And I think that's maybe at the core of, like, what is interesting about house horror too, is, like, this, if you're going to feel safe anywhere, like, you're going to feel safe at home, right? Like, that
Oh my
is the
god,
one place you can
yeah.
trust. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ah.
that's a great point, Griffin. See, I told you I was right when I said you're a film expert. First off, you're just
Mhm.
proving my point, so congratulations.
I would call myself a person with opinions.
Yeah,
Griffin's just, like, connecting dots for us out here as me and Renee
thank
just, like,
God.
throw dots on the board.
Yeah,
Griffin's like, "That connects to that
thank
and that."
fucking God. I love it. This is what we need, like, all the time.
Keeps
But
me and Renee's, like, 2 brain cells going in the same direction.
yeah, always, always in the same direction. But yeah, it's funny that you say that because, like, I always think, like, just we were talking about Stephen King, and my favorite Stephen King book, not overall book, but like from the older stuff, is Salem's Lot, which was like in 1973, I think, when he published that. And it was, or maybe 77, but it's like he basically, this plot is like Dracula in a small town in suburbia America. Like, what would that be?
Cool.
And that's
Mm.
why I was like, I fucking love that because he's like, yeah, how could he fucking operate, in small town America? Like, because he was
Yeah.
like, if I brought him to America, I think he originally thought New York City, but then he goes, well, that wouldn't work. He'd get hit by a cab right away. Right. And I'm like, that's hilarious. But it
That's
is
really
true.
funny.
It's like small town America is that safety net. And I think he's gone back to that a million times because it's like a really ripe thing for horror. And that's
Totally.
like that comfort that you feel. And like nowadays, they've just really continued that. I would say hotels also fit, but it's like, I don't know how
Yeah.
comfortable we ever feel at a hotel, but, like, it's kind of a naturally freaky place,
Totally.
so it kinda
Mhm.
fits, and, like, I like the idea of, like, 1408 where it's not the entire building, it's just one weird room, and it
Yeah.
feels more of like a sci-fi kinda thing where it's, like, another dimension
I was
or
gonna
some
say, like,
shit.
a
Right.
gateway.
Like a gateway to some
Yeah.
other world that you're, and it, like, fucking because everything changes just in that room, and it's like he's, like, calling the cops, and it's like, "The cops are in the room, and you're not in there," and it's like, "I'm in the room, what are you talking about?" Like,
Oh my
that's
god.
freaky as fuck, you know? Like,
Totally. Totally.
that's what's interesting too, is, like, how it can kind of be used in different ways or, like, just like a little space between realities. I think that's fucking cool. I don't know if I wish that that was real, but, like, I kind of think it'd be really interesting. I'm sure that there'd be horrifying shit on the other side, but, like, would be interested in seeing that.
I agree. I agree. I think that's really cool. Yeah, the idea of, like, this yeah, particular space where you are meant to feel comfortable being, being the exact place where you're least safe. Yeah.
Yeah, and all these movies I feel like too have kind of different reasonings for, like, why they're haunted. Either, like, some of them don't give an explanation at all, like, it's just, "This place is fucked,"
Yeah,
but then
yeah.
Mhm.
others it is more of like a, "This could just be, like, a weird gap in realities where we're, like, overlapped with some fucked up shit that's happening in some other worlds," or, like,
Or the person's, like, losing their shit the whole
or they're losing
time,
their
some
mind,
sort
like,
of
there's
psychosis,
yeah,
yeah.
or, like, the house is just an evil place, like, or, like, on top of fucking the gateway to hell. I mean, that's a
Something
new one, but,
insidious,
like,
yeah.
yeah, like, just something horrifying, like, there's all these different reasonings for it, and that's why I'm like, it's especially terrifying because there's not one reason that you have to be, like, worried about. It's like, it could be fucking anything. There could not even
Right.
be a reason.
Yeah, totally agree. I think just to, like, bring it back to Skinamarink, I think that is like the, they really clearly play with that idea a lot of like showing you, there's a lot of like juxtaposition of like showing you things that are meant to be comforting against the backdrop of something that is meant to be terrifying, right? Like showing you all the Lego pieces like against this backdrop of like darkness and the unknown, right? Or like, showing you like in your parents' bedroom where like we talked about this earlier, like the idea of, when you would wake up scared at night and you would go into your parents' bedroom to make sure they're still there, like that being a source of comfort. But
Mhm.
like now they have like flipped that into this idea of like you're in the parents' bedroom and that is specifically where the worst thing is happening, right?
Yeah,
Like this, yeah,
the opposite of comfort, yeah.
That's
yeah.
interesting.
And are we doing spoilers? Sorry, I don't know if I should
Uh,
like
No,
talk
go ahead.
about
I was
the,
gonna say,
yeah.
like, yeah, feel free to like go into spoilers if you want to. Like, I mean, if it's possible to spoil this movie, I'm not really sure because I feel like I really don't know what the plot would be. So feel free to go into that. I'm sure people probably, if you have watched this movie, you might need some fucking help.
Well, I think what you're hitting on is definitely something that I agree with. That like there is a lot of room for interpretation here, right? Like even if
Mhm.
you like agree on like generally what's happening, there's a lot of room to like interpret. What does it mean, or like what are we supposed to take away about what's happening to the characters in this scene? And I think yeah, like I will say like one of the most affecting scenes for me in this movie is the one where the sister whose name like Kaylee something like that
Yeah.
where she goes up to the parents' bedroom and both of the parents are in there, but they are not. I'm getting chills as I talk about it. They are not showing their faces and they
Mm,
are just saying very odd things.
yeah,
Wait, that was the
Yeah,
parents, right? Okay, I couldn't
yeah,
uh-huh,
tell if that was even people what I was looking at, and then I was like, "Who's talking? Is it a voice under the bed that's saying look under the bed, or is it the dad and the
yeah.
mom?" And then I was like, I was very confused because I was like, I thought the whole point of the movie was that the parents weren't there, right?
Yeah, and I think like what you're meant to. I mean, I think part of what makes this movie hard, especially if you're trying to like sort of logically suss out what's happening, is that part of the premise is that the Skinamarink can do anything, right? It can create anything it wants. It can like make you see things. It can take forms. It can shapeshift. Like
The
so,
Skinamarink. What's
I
the
that's my
Skinamarink?
read of it, right?
That makes
Yeah.
sense, okay. So that's, like, the whole thing,
hmm,
whatever the fuck is, like, doing all of this.
That's my takeaway. I'm sure there are other interpretations of it, but to me, I was thinking like every time you're seeing something that doesn't seem like it could be happening, it's some manifestation of the Skinamarink's powers or its way of controlling the house.
It's like fucking Pennywise shit,
Yeah,
mhm.
you
yeah,
know?
basically same thing. Yeah,
And I think I started interpreting when things were upside down. Like, I didn't know how to interpret that. I was trying to think, like, is he possessed? Is the thing in him now? And we're just like on the upside down, basically, from this
the
perspective. But, like, you
literal
know what I
Yep.
upside down.
mean? Yeah, literally. And I was like, okay, what do I make of this now that we have a different perspective and camera angle suddenly for like
Yeah,
just a chunk of it?
Yeah, I didn't know what to make of that either. I just assumed that the thing, whatever was happening had flipped the house and it was, like, upside down. It kinda reminded me of, like, the Night House, how it's, like, the reflective house that he builds to,
yeah,
like,
the
trap
mirror
the thing.
house. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, and, like, somehow, like, some of the stuff too, like, was similar. I mean, not as, like, obvious, I would say, as the Night House. Like, you know how you can kinda see the silhouette of the thing through, like, different shapes through the house?
yeah,
yep,
And in that movie, and then in Skinamarink, it was like I was kind of seeing a little bit of that, but then, I'm also just looking at darkness, and I think I'm just trying to see something, and I was
mhm,
yeah,
like, "Is that something right there? Like, what the fuck is that?" And I'm like, "Can I zoom in a little bit?" Like, I was, like, kinda more just like, "I wanna see some shit," and I think that was where I was kinda just, like, hoping for something to happen
yeah.
and waiting for it, and then I guess it kinda did. I was gonna ask you guys about the face at the end, towards the end, right? The last 10 minutes, what that face was. That was the Skinamarink? Is that the creature?
That was my read. Yeah.
Okay, it
yeah,
looked like a golem kinda thing.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely I mean, and I think this is where it skews a little bit into like sort of spooky YouTube vibes, which is we haven't talked about, but this movie is sort of a product of spooky YouTube culture, right? Like the director
mhm,
Kyle
Mhm.
Edward Ball, he started out with a YouTube channel where he would make videos based on commenters' descriptions of nightmares they had had.
Well, it sounds like you'd be really good at that. Just from this.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this definitely. I don't know. I think there actually may have been like one of the shorts was
Was
just like
this.
stretched into feature length for this movie, but
Mhm.
That's actually a good transition because we should get into the YouTube horror of it all and, like, this idea of, like, all those shorts and, like, how when they're turned into movies. I wanna talk about that, so
The cinema of the unsettling is a growing film movement. What's the story?
There is no story.
Yeah, it seems like there isn't a narrative. Maybe the filmmaker realized that even narrative is comforting.
So, I think what's interesting about YouTube horror is that I'm sure we all have, like, different things that we were, like, into because there's kind of a lot of different flavors, but I think it's a good topic with this because I haven't even seen any of this director's, like, YouTube shorts, but I would be interested because I think that would work a little bit better for me. I think I struggle with, like, the longer runtime for a lot of these, but I'm curious what was your exposure to YouTube horror, like, what you like to watch? Like, what was the thing that you were checking out or freaking you out?
yeah, for sure. YouTube was founded when I was in my freshman year of college, I think.
Damn. No, I'm just kidding.
And so yeah, I know.
I'm just kidding.
No, no, yeah. But anyway, so I think it like took a while for there to be horror on it, right? Because like
Yeah.
the beginning days of YouTube were just like the most random stuff you can imagine. I don't think anybody had really like figured out what like a content creation model on YouTube was for those first couple years. So like yeah, it took a while for me to be aware of spooky YouTube, so to speak. Like and I think like even now I only really am familiar with the most notable examples of it. Like I'm familiar with Slender Man, and like recently I have become familiar of like the Backrooms series, and I think that's pretty cool. But like yeah, I haven't gone very deep. I think Avery, maybe you were a little deeper in this with your friends in high school. You were saying,
I mean, YouTube definitely became the like sleepover activity when I was like 13 years old. So like early teens and seeing stuff at sleepovers and then going to bed and like just laying there all night and your friend just sleeps soundly. Like I feel like that would have been Renee back in the day maybe, but like oh my god, I saw shit and I would like call my mom. I'd be like, "Come pick me up. Like I can't do this." And some of it would literally be dudes. I have this vivid memory of this one. It was guys just in bed sheets and they had like sunglasses where that like your eyes should be like a traditional ghost, and
hmm.
they would pretend to like die and like they'd squirt ketchup on each other, and I literally like couldn't sleep that night. Like I was
Oh
like,
my
oh my god,
god.
that was the scariest shit I have ever seen.
That's
So
I
cute
love it.
though.
yeah, like Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared was a big one that like really
Mhm.
freaked me out. So there was like a gap. Then I like started liking horror movies, and now I feel like I want to get into like Backrooms and I want to watch all this other
Yeah,
spooky stuff. Like Skinamarink really opened like a new subgenre back open.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And The Backrooms is the one that's gonna be turned into, like, a feature-length movie, right? With the kid
Yeah,
who's, like, what is he, 18? Who made
yeah,
that?
he's super. Yeah, I think
Hmm.
he may even be 17. Yeah, he's like crazy young.
Fucking A.
Yeah,
Jesus. I mean, good for him, but, like, I watched that today. I'd heard of it, but I'd never like, this is Skinamarink was also, like, something that, like, opened this whole subgenre to me now that, like,
Hmm.
I was aware of, but I didn't really, like, know too much about it. So I watched The Backrooms, and I thought that was well done, but I also was like, this is why I think a short film is perfect, but I don't know if you can maintain that tensity, like, because I mean, granted, I didn't find Skinamarink that intense, but, like, if it that's the emotion it's supposed to evoke, it's, like, it's really hard to keep that, and it's I mean, that's probably why people are having such strong reactions to it.
Hmm.
But I think this kind of horror, like, experimental stuff, it works for me in smaller doses, but I'm curious to see what you guys think, because like, the only one I can think of for these is Lights Out, and that
Yeah.
was one that I remember watching that, and that was, like, maybe the first one that I ever watched on, like, YouTube horror that I was like, "Oh, shit. That's fucking scary," and maybe that just terrified me because I haven't really seen much else since then, but that one, I saw that it was made into a movie, and I was just like, "Eh," like, I've already seen it, you know what I mean? What's the point in extending this with, like, an unnecessary plot?
yeah. I saw Lights Out the movie before the short, the feature length movie before the short, and I agree with you. I think it works much better as a short than as a feature
Mhm.
length film. And like, I totally get the criticism of Skinamarink that like in its worst moments, it veers too hard into like the corniness of spooky YouTube, where like
Mhm.
it goes back to these like really bad sort of like horror tropes that like you want to attribute to like just less experienced directors. They just don't have maybe as much they're leaning on crutches if you want of like
Mhm.
like spooky cliches.
Mhm.
The one I see a lot of people talking about on Twitter is like the when it does the jump scare with the phone with the face on it.
Yeah.
Like yeah, I like for me when that happened, it was definitely like a okay, like this is I see what you're doing and I'm not loving it moment, but
Mhm.
yeah,
I just think that speaks to, like, the shortness is what creates the scare factor.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, that, like, boom, bang, and I loved Lights Out, the short, and I saw the movie, and I did not enjoy the movie, and I couldn't tell because it was just also the film quality, like, I think something
Yeah.
about that grit when you're filming something so simple in plot like that, it just adds to the realisticness versus seeing it
Hmm.
in, like, full production. I feel like you're like, "'Kay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's it. Like, this is what we're doing. Like, lights on, lights off." Like,
Yep. I
I
feel
don't know.
like, and tell me what you think of this, but I kinda think Skinamarink I could really get behind if it was cut down and it was like a VHS segment.
Ooh,
Like, it
yeah.
would be a
Yeah,
lot more
yeah.
effective to me then, and I think I'd be more on board with the weird thing it's throwing at me if I had less of a time commitment, because I that's why, like, I gave up the first time I watched it. I watched, like, 30 minutes, and I was like, "There's still, like, fucking forever left in this movie. I cannot do this." And
Yeah.
Jace had watched it already because we were like, "Maybe we should talk about it." But then I was like, "I gave up." And I was like, "Does anything happen?" He's like, "No." So I was like, "Okay, yeah, okay, I don't
He
know."
tapped out. Yeah, he just
Yeah,
is like, "I don't care enough to explore this."
exactly. Well, he finished it. But good for him. He says
Oh,
he
okay,
can't,
good. So
like,
he
n he
actually
can't
finished
give
it.
up, but he said nothing really happened. So I was like, "Okay,
Mhm.
cool, then I'm out." And now I'm like, I still don't really like it took me a full minute to realize the movie had ended. Like, and I was
Mhm.
Yeah.
looking back at my Amazon Prime. Like, I was like, "Oh, whoops." Like, this is over? What the fuck? Like, I don't know. I kind of for me, I think it just would have worked better as a short. I understand though, like, why this method was used because obviously $15,000 is like fucking nothing. Like, how are you gonna
Mhm.
do special
Yeah.
effects? And it's kind of like but for me, I just feel like it's so much more well done in, like, Blair Witch or, like,
Mm.
or even, especially, I think Paranormal Activity, like, that one was when
Yep.
I was, like, in college, and I
I
remember
loved
watching
that
that, like
movie.
I remember, like, getting that, like, illegally, like, watching that, like, on some weird streaming site on my shitty laptop and still being terrified and staying up
Yep.
all night because
Mhm.
it was, like, so effective and, like, literally no special effects, right? And
Yeah.
it was so fascinating what they were able to do with it, and I just think that one didn't have that much of a plot, really. It was literally just we're haunted by this thing, and then they kinda
Mhm.
get into more of that later, but I think I just needed a little bit more if it's gonna be a full-length movie, it needs to justify that, like, this is a movie. Like, I
Yeah.
Yeah.
felt like this was like, when you put on, like, a Yule log, like, this is what I would put
Right.
on Halloween as, like, a mood vibe for, like, just
You're
feeling
literally Gabe.
spooky.
Let's throw it on in the background. It's just a
Yeah.
little
Yeah,
atmospheric
yeah.
spook.
Exactly. It's like it gives me, like, a fun, spooky vibe, but, like, I like that, I'm not freaked out by
Yeah.
it, so, like, I just think if it was shorter, I would have been more affected by it, you know?
I would play this on a projector at a party. I'm just gonna say that. Like, I this is
Yeah.
that is the number one thing I would do with this movie.
Mhm.
I had this take coming out of Infinity Pool actually, but I was like,
Ooh.
there is a certain kind of movie that I feel like is perfect to be projected onto a screen at a dive bar, and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Infinity Pool is that movie for me, but like I think Skinamarink also for a certain kind of dive bar is that movie.
Give me
Yeah,
Skinamarink at a bar on Halloween, and
Yeah.
I'm into it. I'm
yeah,
all
yeah,
in.
yeah.
Like,
You
that is
just
my
seeing that, like,
jam.
blown up on a wall out of context to, like, any one of
Yeah.
those random scenes is uncomfortable to look at, but, like, it's
Yeah.
not yeah, you know what I mean?
It kinda felt like this movie was just like an art exhibit, but, like, in a movie, right? Where there's
Mhm.
no, like, plot to follow, and, like, I think it's so cool that, like, I mean, the fact that you guys were able to glean anything from this movie is impressive to me. I feel like Andy when he's like, I on The Office, and he's like, Pam and Jim are, like, talking about, like,
Oh.
their parents' divorce, but he thinks they're talking about the movie, and he's like, "I don't think I'm insightful enough to be a film critic," you know? I think
Pam
I'm
and
talking about
Jim are really smart.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
so insightful, like, but you guys are, like, actually insightful about this shit, and I'm just like, I think it's just too much of a stretch for me in a movie, which is weird because I'm all about, like, especially I think in TV shows, I'm more about, like, where my brain has to really work at it and, like,
Mm.
put things together, but it's like a long-term investment, I think is really what I'm gonna get out of that eventually. Game of Thrones kinda burned me on the thing, but you know what I mean? Whereas, like, this one, there was just nothing for me to follow, and I was asking so many questions the whole movie of, like, "What the fuck am I looking at, and what is this?" That I just kind of, like, was out of it.
Yeah, I get that. I think there is, like, first of all, I would say I don't think there's any right or wrong way to enjoy something. Let me qualify
Totally.
that immediately. Like, there are
You're not
certainly
doing
some
it
wrong ways
wrong.
to enjoy things, but I think as long as you're like trying to, get into it, I don't think like I don't agree at all with this culture of like, you have to beat yourself up for not liking something or like thinking you
Yeah,
should like something that you don't like, whatever.
it's
Like
so toxic.
ultimately this is a form of entertainment, and if you're not entertained, like there's no, like, you don't have to
Yeah.
fucking impress anybody with your taste. Like, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
What is that?
Uh,
People just wanna fight nowadays, and I don't get it. I've been the opposite where I'm like, I would rather just not fight ever. Like, I don't wanna start I'm happy with whatever anybody says. I occasionally will get passionate about a hot take, but I won't be like, "I fucking hate you, you deserve to die." Like, that's really intense, you know? Like,
yeah,
that's
like
Unless
whatever.
it's Keanu Reeves, right, Renee?
unless it's okay, but I will say, now that makes me more of a villain. I think Keanu Reeves is I'm sure he's a lovely person. From all accounts I've heard, he's just delightful as a human being, but, like, as an actor, I think he should get another job, that's all. I'm like,
Man,
I mean,
coming at Keanu
yeah,
Reeves.
I know it's a hot take, but that's what I'm here for, I think. I think just overall with this YouTube horror thing, I just wish this movie was more like Salad Fingers. I think that's what I was
Yeah.
missing. I
Yeah,
was
I
like
I think it goes back to if it changed the artistic direction of it for some little things about it, you could have gotten a whole different audience too.
yeah.
Like,
Sure, yeah. I think the other thing is like there are a lot of like little kernels where you can see like kind of the borders of a YouTube video in it. Like you can kind of
Mhm.
say like, all right, this scene in the bedroom with the parents, this feels like a short in itself, right? And
yep,
Yeah.
like the scene where he's walking on the ceiling, or the couple scenes where he's walking on the ceiling, I
yeah,
think also sometimes feel like a short in themselves. And
the
like
cartoon
the
loop, that's the
cartoon
one that
loop,
felt very
ooh,
YouTube-y to me.
yeah, I mean, I've already gone on record as saying I did really like this movie, but I that was like one of the
We get
best
it,
parts to me
Griffin.
was like I think yes, for anybody who hasn't seen it, it is a essentially you're understanding that like sometimes you're seeing things from the Skinamarink's perspective and sometimes you're seeing things from the kid's perspective. And in
Really?
one of these Skinamarink perspective scenes, the Skinamarink is watching. One thing we haven't talked about is that there's old cartoons playing on the TV the entire movie.
Mhm.
Like
Like
they're
tapes of something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like there are these old like what do you call it? Fair
It's
use.
it's
They're like in the
pre-Bugs
public domain.
Bunny. Yeah.
Yeah, public domain cartoon footage playing the entire time, and so like they're cartoon characters that most of us, I would guess, are not super familiar with. Like, but one of them is showing a character. I don't remember what he's uh,
No,
creating
I got
and
it, I
making
got it.
disappear. You got it?
He's
What is it?
yeah, it's a magician act, and it's from a cartoon that predated Bugs Bunny. This is what I read in that article, and it's a snippet that was eventually the character that became Bugs Bunny. But he's a
Oh,
magician act, and he's doing like instead of pulling a rabbit out of a hat, he's making the rabbit himself. He's making himself disappear,
yes,
and it's all about. And I think that ties into the movie so well because it things reappearing and disappearing
right,
is like the
right,
whole thing that the Skinamarink is like doing to these kids. So I feel like
yes.
it's just showing him like doing his own act. Like, oh, it's so creepy.
Yeah, I think it's really cool because you're seeing like you don't always get like you definitely get a sense, I think, at certain times that the Skinamarink is like it is looking for somebody to play with, right? Like it's
Mm,
looking for sort of a play partner, but it is also you also at times see like especially in that scene where yeah, like Avery said, like he's kind of his hands are like at the top and bottom of the screen and then they will kind of come together,
like a
and
clap.
as they come together disappears within his hands, right? And then he opens them back up and reappears. And it is this like vanishing and reappearing act that like like you are watching this cartoon play out, and then once it's this clip has finished, it will rewind to that
Hmm.
point at the beginning of the vanishing act, and then it loops several times, right? So like I think my read of this, what you're understanding is that the Skinamarink is like fascinated with this, right, and loves this like out of all the cartoon footage, this is the thing that it's like really,
And
taken with.
yeah, yeah, it's like
Yeah,
relating to it almost. It's seeing
yeah,
itself in media. It's like, oh my god, it's me.
Oh
yeah.
my
It feels so
god.
seen. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
He replays it for the kids. He's like, "Do you
Oh,
get it? Do you get
yeah.
it? It's
Walt Disney
me."
gets me.
Oh my god, you guys. I feel like I did not watch the same movie as you. This is like, I don't know how you guys must have like fucking superpowers.
I just like
Yeah,
breakdowns. I think any movie I see and I don't understand, and I get somebody's like hot take, and if it resonates with me, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's what the person was doing, and I just like
yeah.
disassociate that person making the movie probably had a completely different goal, but
Yeah.
whatever this blogger said, I'm like, yes, that is right. That makes sense
Totally.
to me.
I
Interesting.
agree with the take that like I think it is better for creators like directors or screenwriters to not talk about
Yeah,
what the thing is about, right? To like let the audience decide what the thing is about. I think that is like
it's so fun.
anytime you hear some like I feel like there's a lot of things where people are like, I really want to know what the director thinks it's about. And then as soon as the director says what it's about, it's always like, oh,
Ugh.
Oh,
okay. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
that's
right?
boring. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I do agree.
totally.
It's better when we can like debate it. It's like David Lynch when they're like, he'll say something and they'll be like, "Oh, would you care to explain like how that affects
Yeah.
like this?" And he's
No.
like, "No."
No.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
That's the
"What
right
a
call.
fucking
That's the right
badass."
call.
What a
Yeah.
Yeah.
move. Yeah, if you
And
have that power, why wouldn't you not
I mean,
control it?
and what a guy to do it because his shit makes 0 sense. Like, I've seen Twin Peaks a million times now, and I still don't get a lot of it, and I love it. But it's
Yeah.
like, I watched this one, my friend sent me, like, a 4.5-hour video of this guy explaining Twin Peaks, like, in this insane
In depth.
theory
Yeah.
of how it's like a commentary on television, and it was fascinating, and I was like, "Man, this is probably not at all it, but, like, I'm all in on this.
I love
This
Yeah.
that
is really
Yeah.
shit.
cool."
I love that
Yeah.
shit.
Totally.
I I'm normally, like, so able to get that, but I just feel, like, really dumb that, like, all this movie I was like, "I don't know, is this a nightmare? Is this really happening?" I've heard people say that the kid was in a coma after he fell down the stairs. I didn't even know he fell down the stairs. I mean, like, I think he said that, but and then I think in the article that Avery that you sent me, it said that, like, the events aren't all happening on one night, and I was like, "I'm sorry, what?"
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
How
Yeah.
happens
do
over
Take
like a
place over
long
time.
span of
Yeah.
time,
are you
especially at
kidding
the end.
me?
I think it's been like 4 years or something
How do
like
you know
that.
that?
They keep going to sleep and then waking up, and
Are they?
then yeah, yeah. There's a lot of like scenes of them like going to sleep, and
Oh
then
my god, okay,
yeah,
wow.
Some
and
people
then
notice some people
there's that
notice some
moment
sharp
also.
shit, but like, yeah, I read a lot of it after the fact and I just roll with it. If I'm like, yeah, sure. It was 4 years later. I believe you.
Wow, really? I did not get any of that.
There's like a caption at one point where it says like 100 and some days
It says the
later.
days. Yeah, it says
Does
the
Yeah.
it?
days.
Oh my god, you guys. Okay, now I'm really, like, dumb.
It's that one time you like glanced at your phone. It was like 600 days later and you look up and you're
Yeah.
like, "Okay, it's the next day." Like that shit. And that's the problem because it's so slow burn, but you have to be like
Glued
watching.
in.
Right.
You
But
have
I
to be
feel
like
like if I
watching.
was that glued in, I would've left. Like, if I was at the theater, I think I would've just gotten up and been like, "Can I
It
get my
burns
money
you
back?"
up.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Yeah.
But, like, that's just because, like, I just don't think I could be that focused on that nothing. For me, it felt like I was trying too hard. I couldn't do it. Like, this whole movie, I was just going, "What is this movie?" in my notes. Like, "What is happening?" And then I
Mhm.
was like, "It's over?" Like, it was all like, it took forever, but then all of a sudden it was over. It was just very strange.
I'm worried
Yeah.
that that is going to be a similar reaction to if they make the Backrooms a movie. 'Cause
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
right?
really like the Backrooms, and I'm scared it's not gonna have enough of a plot to be like a feature-length film, and it's just
Yeah.
gonna
What is the
flop,
plot?
and everyone's gonna be like, "What the hell?"
Yeah,
Yeah. I think part
exactly.
of the charm of or the charm, but I mean, part of the appeal of
No, it's charm. It's charm
back
for me.
it's charm. Yeah, nice. It's a very charming film series. The I think part of the appeal of Backrooms is that like you don't know what's going on. Like that
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
disorienting nature of it is like you are yeah, like
There's
I don't
zero
think it would be.
context.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it would be as good if it was trying to tell you what it was about.
Ugh.
Yeah, but that's, like, what they will do with it. Although, however, sorry, I would say that if it was a normal studio, but because it's A24, I feel like they'll just lean into the weird and not give you any context.
They might make it weird. They might make it where you're literally
For
like
sure.
POV, you're in the back rooms. Like they don't give context of a person like
Mm.
entering the space. Like you might just the film might just start waking up and you don't even know what your like figure is. You're just from some
Yeah, and, like, I'm
perspective.
all for, like, situational horror and stuff like that, but I think I just like, most of the situational horror that I watch, I like they establish a little character before shit happens, and so
Mhm.
and plus, the weird thing about this movie is that they don't show the characters, like, from the front at all, ever, except for, like, the girl when she
One
has no
time.
eyes and
Yeah.
no face, and you're like or no mouth, and you're like, "What the fuck is this?" And I
Yeah.
thought this was all a dream that the kid was having while in a coma, when I read that he was supposedly in a coma or they fell down the stairs, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
"That's, like, the closest I can get to understanding this movie, I think." And then when you said the Skinamarink is a creature, okay, now I can kind of get on that. That
Yeah.
makes a bit more sense, but, like, I just I want to know I know you're not supposed to, like, that's the cardinal rule of movies is to not give a lot of information out about the villain or the monster, right? Once you show too much of it, I feel like it
Yeah.
becomes less scary.
Yep.
So, like, I don't it's not like I necessarily needed more, but I would have loved to see some creepy ass shit, that's all. I know they
Yeah.
have no budget, so it's unrealistic for me to demand that, but, that's one of the charms of, like, The Thing, right? Is, like, the creature's so grotesque and so upsetting
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
like, it's so, like, freaky. It adds
Yeah.
to that. I need a little bit of that and, like, I know I you kinda get a look at it, I guess, at the end, but I just needed a little bit more and a little bit more energy. I think I'm just lazy is what this comes down to.
I'm curious, you guys should watch that World's Fair movie. I'm curious what you'll think about
Yes.
that.
I
Yeah,
want
that's
to,
like
yeah.
another YouTube or it's like a is it like a social media? I we were talking about
It's
this
like YouTube horror.
recently, like YouTube and then also like social media horror is kind of like another thing
Yeah.
too,
Mm.
like,
The iPhone.
Unfriended even or
Or what's
like,
that one where the Stranger Things guy drives around?
yep, I was just about to say,
Stream or something?
Spree.
Spree.
I love that
Oh.
one where he's the Lyft or the whatever driver, Uber driver basically, and, like, live streaming him killing all of his people that he picks up, it's
Mhm.
great.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
But it's all from, like the screen frame is all, like, you're watching an
The
iPhone.
cameras in
Yeah,
his yeah, it's
yeah,
all the
Yeah.
cameras in the car and, like,
Sh
people's phones and shit.
yeah, I don't know.
Or like,
yeah.
did you guys watch Deadstream?
Mhm.
No?
Yeah, okay, Deadstream is on Shudder. Griffin, you should watch it. It's like
Cool.
Evil
I love
Dead,
it.
but with
Yeah.
found footage and with a haunted house,
I
and
love
it's
Oh,
found
so
nice. Yeah,
funny.
I'm
footage.
in.
And,
I love
did
found
you watch
footage.
you guys okay, I know we mentioned VHS earlier, but do you guys like the VHS movies?
Love
I have not seen the
VHS.
VHS movies either.
What? Okay,
Oh, you
No,
gotta
wow.
I know, I
watch.
know, I know.
If you like Skinamarink, it's like
Spanish, right? Is that right? Spanish?
No, that's Rec.
Oh, okay, got it.
Mm,
Yeah.
Yeah, which I need to see. I haven't seen, like, the American version Quarantine, but I've heard you gotta see Rec first because that's, like, the
Okay.
Spanish version, it's way better, but no, VHS is where it's like an anthology, and they're all, like there's, like, a main story of, like, these people there's, like, different VHS movies now, but the first one is, like, all these cool directors that are doing it, so it has, like, the guys, the Radio Silence guys,
mhm.
and it has, fucking David Bruckner
Ooh.
and Ty West and all these fucking
Mm.
cool dudes, and they all do, like, little shorts, and they're all, like, VHS tapes that these guys who are, like, on a job to rob this house and steal and they find all these VHS tapes, and they start watching them, and there's,
Oh
like, a
my
dead
god,
Oh,
body
it's
nice.
somewhere,
so
and
good.
then it
Yeah, that's
shows each
cool.
segment, and they're all different, like they just are all freaky in different ways, and that's why I was like, "This movie just feels like a really long VHS segment." Not all of them are always great, but, like, it's a cool vibe, I just need a little bit more story, and if it was shorter, I think it would fit perfectly in that genre.
It
I
totally
get
would.
that. I
It
get that.
totally would.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
struggled with VHS at first. Like when I put it on the first time, I was like, what am I watching?
Yeah.
Like this is so confusing. And then I just yeah, once your
I
brain like clicks over to it, you're like,
yeah.
okay, I get the thing.
Uh-huh.
We're watching little blips.
Yeah, you kinda get through, like, I think the open or the main, like, connecting segments that you kinda come back to, like, the overarching story between segments is never that great. Like, I always kind of
Yeah.
am like, "That
Mhm.
one's just kind of whatever." And then each of the tapes, it's like some of them are really good. I think in the first VHS, the first segment from David Bruckner, who did The Night House and,
I
Oh
like the
yeah,
first one the
Greatest of
yeah.
best
all
too.
time,
Yeah.
The Ritual. That's like a movie I watch just for comfort all the time. It's so good.
Ritual
The
rules.
Ritual?
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
Yeah,
comfort
ritual
some of
rules.
movie.
those oh my god, yeah. No, that's definitely a background one for me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's so good, and I think this movie just feels like I think very similar. Like, a lot of these YouTube horrors, I think, would fit perfectly in the VHS tone. I think I just even like, some of those don't give you a ton of plot to go off of, but I need a little something, and I'm glad that we all watched it, though. Like, I'm glad to say that I've watched it. I'm not gonna shit on this movie forever. Like, I'm happy for this guy that he did this cool thing, and it's experimental, and, like, I'm all for it. I love artistry. I think that's great. Not for me. I don't care if you
Yeah.
like it. Griffin, I still respect you.
Yeah, no, I think like yeah.
I feel like even if I don't like it, I would tell people to watch it just to like expose them to something weird. Like I'd be like, just give it a
Yeah.
shot. Just give it a shot. I'm
Put
not
on
even
a
gonna tell
party.
people that I hated it. I'd just be like, just put it on at a party.
Just put it on.
Yeah. See
Dinner
what
party is
happens.
ideal. Yeah, see what happens. Get
I'm
weird.
I'm thinking of just The Office where he shows them that creepy film, and then they're all
Yeah.
like, "What
I
is
like the
this?"
Halloween party. Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny.
It's like it would be the perfect thing to put on a Halloween party, honestly, right?
We'll
Yeah.
put it on if New Engine ever gets together for a Halloween or
Yes.
any sort of
Oh.
party. We'll be the ones to be like, we got it. We
We
got it,
got it, guys.
guys. We got the perfect movie.
I'd be a little offended if they didn't come to us for a Halloween party, though. Like, I mean, I feel like we would just be the first things to go to. Like, this is the spooky club, right?
I
Yeah.
hope so.
The
I hope
Midnight
so
Club.
Hashtag
too.
spooky
What's the
stuff to
club
watch.
in Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Oh god. That's a question for your generation.
Oh, fuck if I know. I do know.
Damn.
My sisters watched it. My sisters watched it.
I watched it too. I can't remember shit though, but I do remember what
The
you're talking
Phantom
about.
Club?
Are you
Don't
talking
think
about the
that's it.
Midnight Club?
Is it called the Midnight Club?
No, that's like that Mike
No.
Flanagan show
No,
based
yeah,
on
no,
another
not that,
series of
not
books.
that. No, it's the like in the world of Are You Afraid of the Dark? There's like the
Mm.
kids are always meeting at the campfire and they tell the stories and they call themselves something. I don't
The
remember.
Midnight Society?
Ooh, is that it?
I think
That
so.
sounds right. Yeah,
It's a
I
little
think
yeah,
so.
yeah.
fancier than just the club. We're a society,
Oh yeah,
we're
yeah,
like structured. I
yeah,
like
exactly.
it. And kids, of course, are known for their structure.
Yeah,
No,
those
I
kids
think
were
this is
organized. They got together once a week to tell a ghost story.
I
Around a
think it's
fire nonetheless. Like they were
Yeah,
efficient in their spooky
like,
setting.
like now that I'm an adult, like yeah, lighting a campfire is not a small feat. Like you gotta
oh
bring
god, no.
materials.
Yeah. Plus being out in the fucking woods, yeah, right. Are you kidding
Yeah,
me? No
yeah.
way. That's
If
too
we did
much.
that now, Renee would be out. She'd be like, I'm
I
gonna
would
run.
out. I'll do it in my form of outdoorsy is like drinking out on the patio. And it's like a
And a nice
common thing.
rocking chair.
Yeah, like
Maybe a
that's
little blankie on your lap.
exactly, but I have to go back inside in 20 minutes because 'cause I'm, like, allergic to the sun and all the grass, so the good life I lead over here, but yeah, no, this is really fun. I'm, glad that we watched this movie and I like that we all had different opinions of it. I think it's very interpretive. It hasn't turned me off of artistic movies like this, and I would still be interested in experimental horror. Honestly, anything horror. Like, I'm never
Agreed.
not gonna try it. Any flavor, it might not always be for me, but I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
We're
I'm not,
here.
I don't want to in any way tell you how to enjoy anything. But I would say, the only thing I would say is that for me, the way that like I found it easier to enjoy stuff like this is, if you can like try to let go of whatever expectations you have from the beginning. And like, as soon as you hit that point where you're like, I have no idea what's going on, like that is the perfect point to just like surrender entirely and just say
Mm.
like, all right,
Yeah,
take me wherever you think I should go and like
that's true.
let it happen.
I'm okay with doing that in most horror movies. I'm, like, really open to the idea, but for some reason, I think it just has to be exciting, and I'll be all
Definitely.
open to
Yeah.
it. If it's, like, really interesting or something exciting happening and it's weird as fuck and I don't understand, I'm a lot more inclined, I think. But you're right. I think the thing is, I think we can all agree. I need to do shrooms and watch this movie. And then I will tell you guys what I thought about it if it
Your
works.
Yeah.
new hot take.
My new
Yeah.
hot take is that I should watch every movie on shrooms.
A secondary watch experience, if you will.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it'll be a fun experience, but yeah, I think this was fun and I'm glad that you guys joined me and if you guys want to stick around and we kick Jace out of here, that's something we can talk about off the air.
There's always room
But
for one more.
But yeah, thank you both for being here. This was a great time.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Renee.
I'm not insightful enough to be a movie critic. Maybe I could be a food critic. These muffins taste bad. Or an art critic. That painting is bad.
All right, I'm back. And how dare you say maybe you don't need me? You're never getting rid of me.
I'm just kidding,
I'm the
Jace.
regular or the exclusive. We've never determined, but I'm here to stay. I took a little break, but I'm back and I have some thoughts. But real quick, big shout out to Griffin and Avery. Thank you guys for filling in. You were great. That was some fun conversation for a movie that was not very fun.
Yeah, they made me feel pretty dumb, but I really enjoyed talking with them, and I think we'll have to have them back.
I agree. And we need to just have an episode where you're gone and then it's just me and them, and then, we just have our fun.
All right, Jace, but you're not getting rid of me either.
Never. You're the fun part.
Oh, I will say I did miss you. Your structure is very important, and I feel like you really are a good leader here, because without you, I'm just throwing shit at the wall and figuring it out as I go.
Well, hey, you had great aim this week. So
Thank you.
Proud of you. You did great. So I just had a couple notes on Skinamarink, as we're outroing this episode here. Overall, this was not a movie for me. Huge props to the guy who did it on that budget. I don't hate the player, I hate the game. Doesn't mean that I like to play your play with you on the same team. I don't know. But yeah, I will never watch this movie again. It was interesting. But here's some of my big takeaways. This movie looked like the early days of Instagram, where everything was just over filtered as shit.
Yep,
like
totally.
The whole time.
That's a really good call out, because I totally was thinking that, but I did not put it together.
I also thought the main thing of this movie, if I was going to describe it to someone, because I don't understand what the plot is.
Yeah.
This movie is just 90 minutes of stuff being pulled off screen, and then stuff being put back on screen. I don't know. It was just super weird to me. This would have been really good as a 30-minute segment on an anthology thing, but 90 minutes. Yeah,
it's a VHS segment.
It
Cut
totally
it down.
is.
It would be perfect. I'd be all in. That's what I said in the episode. Thank you, Jace. I did miss you. Okay, this is my level of I just am not that insightful. This movie was nothing to me. I appreciate what it's going for, but it's just. I'm so glad that you feel the same way.
And then the last thing is that, people are going to compare this to Blair Witch and Paranormal Activity and the whole found footage genre. I don't even think this qualifies as found footage. Based off the camera angles and everything, I think this was abandoned footage. It was just people recorded something, they dropped it, maybe someone found it, and they're just like, nah, we don't need to do anything with this. It's just that's it for 90 minutes. Just so someone left this behind.
That's probably right. I mean, when Griffin said that sometimes the camera is from the point of view of the Skinamarink or the kids, I was like, I'm sorry, what?
There's characters in this movie? I just saw ankles.
We don't see faces. I just call me crazy, but I need to see a face and have a character name. Again, my problem with Tenet, the fucking character's name, the protagonist. What is that? I need a name. I need a little plot. I need to hear the dialogue. What is the problem with people? Is it too much to ask?
Nah, apparently it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't even know the Skinamarink was an actual character. So shout out to Griffin.
It blew my fucking mind when he said that.
I mean, I know the point of this movie was, to have the same feeling as when you were kids scared of the dark. I don't know. The scariest part to me, and you guys talked about it, was when the toilet disappeared. I was like, oh my God, what do we do?
That's a legit fear. That was the only part that I was like, ooh, that would be a nightmare. I can think about that.
Well, and speaking of childhood fears and toilets, one fear that I had as you guys were talking about your childhood fears, I was scared of the dark a little bit, but more than anything, I was scared of how loud toilets were. I would do the thing where I'd flush the toilet and then run out of the room because of how loud they were. If this movie maybe incorporated that, it might have been more effective, but
That's pretty weird.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. We out here.